some of our values aren't written in paper, but have been established and grown through our history and the intangible values that make America great and have the presence around the world that it does and be looked to as a leader.
For sustainable development is really predicated upon the century-old U.S. central bank and in some cases centuries-old central banks from other countries. The entire world now is wrapped up in a process of central banks and in their creation of what's called fiat money. That means money that's made out of thin air. So what happens is that globalist bankers create our monies and have been for a long time out of thin air and then earn interest on it for all time. So the money has been concentrated around the world into the hands of these people and their business partners. And as a consequence, they've been able to buy up the media. The media is lock, stock, and barrel owned by those who support sustainable development policies. And so if Sean Hannity started talking about sustainable development, well, we'd have a new show called Mr. Smith and Combs. The people like Rush Limbaugh know not to talk about sustainable development. It's how they lose their money ring.
I think that's so important to understand is that certainly according to Professor Benedict at the University of California, why 90 to 95% of the major media outlets in the United States are controlled by one of five major corporations that largely determine what the American people read, what they see, what they hear, and ultimately what they believe. And that's why, of course, most people don't believe in sustainable development, even though it is the master plan that is being followed by our Congress, by the elite who rule our country, and by so many corporations. So pick up the story there, Michael.
Well, just to confirm that, Dr. Ron Paul told me not too long ago that sustainable development is an absolute given within the U.S. Congress. In other words, it's practiced, it's implemented, it's not questioned, it's understood, it's being implemented by our Congress without really anyone, including Dr. Paul, speaking out as to the real nature of sustainable development. In 1987, a statement found in the Brundtland Report, Our Common Future, which was released during the 1987 UN World Commission on Environment and Development, said, quote, development, sustainable development is being defined now, development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, is the mantra for sustainable development. That same mantra appeared in the 1976 Soviet Constitution. You can see philosophically its rooting, its pedigree, if you will. Imagine if 100 years ago people said, we're going to save the whale oil that lights our homes for future generations. Well, many fewer people would have had light at night to study and learn. And who knows what would not have been developed in the 20th century had we saved our whale oil, unanticipating that a better source of fuel would come along if we had saved our resources for future generations. It's the ingenuity of future generations that will create a better and improving world for them. But under sustainable development policy, all things are to be frozen.
And I really think people have to understand what they really want is to stop people using the natural resources, their natural resources. They don't consider them belonging to mankind or God. They believe it belongs to the elite. And so they really want us to stop using oil. They want us to stop using our cars, which burn oil and gasoline. They want us to stop using the forests. Of course, rather let them burn than let them be cut down to be used for lumber to build homes for people. They tell us we're running out of water. They tell us we're running out of clean air. We're going to have to regulate everything to control the air. And yet, on one hand, it is many of these very same people that are polluting our environment, that are doing everything they can to create the problem. Would you agree with that?
Well, I certainly would. I mean, in short, sustainable development is seeking to transform America. And to do that, rights have to be destroyed. Crises have to be created. Shortages will result. And consequently, we will end up with a police state that is the bottom line of sustainable development. And we see evidence of that all around us. Let's talk talk a little bit about the framework within which this philosophy called sustainable development operates. Their literature often includes a chart, the so-called three circles, the three E's, coming together to form sustainable development. It's worth understanding what these three E's are so that we can begin to recognize signs of it in our own community. People should understand that every county, all 3,000 counties in the United States of America, have a sustainable development program. It's usually washed in warm and fuzzy language. But once you understand the three E's, you can begin to identify those sustainable organizations in your community that are working right now to bring around this massive change, this globalization of American interests, this destruction of the American Constitution, and restructure of the rules by which we live. Now, those three E's are called equity, which really means the system of justice, economy, and the environment. Everyone's seeing all kinds of language about the environment these days. I'm going to save that to last to show how the environment really is just used as a prop in order to engineer a redefinition of our system of justice and a redefinition of our system of economics. First, let's look at the equity section. What is that? Well, sustainable development seeks to restructure human nature. It is no less a calling than that. Like communism, it relies on a system of social justice that works to abolish private property in order to pursue the common good. The pursuit of a centrally determined common good ultimately requires the force of a police state to suppress individual freedoms. So when we see our courts not defending private property, relying on a system of civil rules that just tangle private property and its use up, we can understand that that's an element of this dawning of the concept of sustainable development in your community or state or in our country. Kelo is a perfect example, the Kelo decision, which gave over to Pfizer 300 people's homes in New London, Connecticut, because it would draw a bigger tax base for the city of New London. It's a prototype sustainable development action plan designed to abolish private property and change our system of justice from one of equal justice to one of social justice.
And of course, this was an example of the misuse of eminent domain, which originally was, of course, could be used by communities as far as taking property, of course, with compensation, but taking property for building roads or for building a school or for something that was really needed by the entire community, not taking private property and turning over to other people so that they can use it. See, that's a total misuse of the concept, because what it does is destroy the concept of private property, which is foundational to our society. And if you read the Constitution, you will never see the words life and liberty used unless they're associated with the word property. Life, liberty, and property are the foundations of freedom which are being eroded today. Now, you go after that first by going after property. Now, the second E is economy. Now, America is really founded on the concept of free enterprise. That is, free trade, genuine free trade between free people acting freely in an economic system. But in sustainable development, the economy concept has shifted from free enterprise to what's euphemistically called today around the world public-private partnership. Well, public-private partnership is economic fascism. It's exactly the relationship that Schindler had with Hitler. Remember back to that movie. Well, today, in Santa Cruz and all around the country, but in Santa Cruz, you got to be a public-private partner to build housing in this community. And the housing you then build is the housing the government wants, largely just as so-called affordable